G'day class administrators, Krista Bro from the NACLAT class team. We are watching this video because of this urgent and important data collection request from the Attorney General's Department. We have to run reports from each individual centre, and that is community legal centres who receive MPA funding. Okay, so FBPLSs do not need to do this, nor do you centres who have no National Partnership Agreement funding. If you've only got the independent funding streams, you do not need to do this either. But for the majority, you will need to run these reports. They want the date ranges over the 3 years, and I'm going to walk you through quickly how to do that. Okay, we go to Reports and Accountability and Reports. We need to search for the DIY templates. So I'm going to pop that in there. Or you could type in the actual full name of the one we need to use, which is DIY Service Client. To start with, we'll need the first date range, which is the request is 1st of the 7/17 to the 30th of the 6/18, and that is the most recent data required by Attorney Generals. Now, the good news is if you haven't got class data right up to date, you're okay. You should have already had this to last financial year up to date because you would have reported on them already. So we'll need to put in the dates here, and the first one's 2017. So I click on this December and go back a year, and I can just pull up the July and OK, and then make sure I've got the date. So I've got 1st of the 7th, 17. I'll show a different way to do the same thing really here. I'm just going to mouse back in time to the end date, which was June 30th, 2018. Okay, we do not need to change the date ranges, and we do not need to change the additional reporting date. It should default to service date, completed service. That's the one we want. All right, funding categories are very important, and you need to pay a little bit of attention here. There's actually only one tick box you need to find and click. All right, we need to go down and find, locate CLSP funding type. That is the national codes, and we only need to click this once, because any of these codes that are parented to that will be automatically ticked as well, whereas anything that's not, like the state codes and things, will not be ticked. Single tick, you're done. Okay, so we jump out of there and you'll be able to see that now. I've just made a quick edit on this video because I realized the dummy data wasn't going to cover what we're trying to do. I flicked over to a different site. That's why we just had the quick screen change. But everything I told you so far is all correct. Now we're going to move over to the next process, which is to drop our fields into the correct areas. Now, it is important to do everything in the right order. We start with this process using the filter panel. Then we're going to move over to the fields. And we need to do that before we load the report the first time. So I need to set up the fields before I load the report. Okay, how do we do the fields? As I mentioned, it is important to place fields in the correct areas. You'll see drop row fields here. We're going to use this area. Drop data items here, we'll use our one field here, but we will not be using the drop column fields area or the drop filter fields. Okay, so it's really important when we're doing our drag and drop that we're putting it in the right location. So how do we do that? Well, we can right click and in this space and show fields list. Alternatively, we can just click customize. That does it as well. I'm going to do that for you now. Now, this usually opens a little bit small, unfortunately, and you need to find the corner, which is a little bit fiddly, and we'll get this fixed. But yeah, you kind of drag it and then move it into a location that's a little bit easier to use. All right, we'll begin with Service ID is the first one that we want on the far left, and the left column, the order across here for our columns really matters. Okay, how do we find Service ID? Well, we can do it simply by going under S and scrolling down and clicking on it and dragging and dropping it into the correct place, which is this drop fields here. All right, here it is, the first one, and there it is. It's added our box to that. Now we've got a bunch more. I'll show you the quick shortcut. We're going to use the search in Chrome, and on a Mac that's a Command F for find, and I think it's Control F on a PC, but you should be able to find it there. And we're going to type in what we need, and it'll pop up on this list. So the next one is actually client postcode. There's no other word postcode anywhere on this page of the website of class, so I can just put in postcode and it'll automatically find it in the list. We can drag it in here. Now be careful, you can see the little arrows. We do not want it to be to the left of service ID, we want it to the right, and you'll see the arrows now turning up on the right. Be careful not to put it above, over here, or over in this area. Just next to it, and then let it go, and it'll drag it next to the right of service ID. That matters. Where again, for the next one, we need to put it to the right of client postcode, so we don't want to put it in the center or to the left. So the next field is called service type. Again, I should be able to just write service and I'll put in type and it'll show it. I can drag it. I'm putting it to the right of the next one. I'll drop this pivot grid, fill this down a little bit so it's clearer. Okay, the next one again is law type. So I should be able to just type law type. There it is. Drag and drop again to the right location. The next one is office location. Typing office should get us there. See, there's office already on this page, but just mouse through them when there's a few and it'll turn up. And there we go. And the last one in this part is outreach service. So again, I can type outreach and there it is. So I'll drag and drop. And then the final one, we're no longer going to be using this area. We're going above it to the data items area. Now you'll just see, you might be wondering what happened then. It's just because we've got so many, it's pushed that off the side of the page. If you've got a big screen, you won't have a problem there. Now we're wanting to find number of service, which is number is NO of service, and they're the two usual ones that you'd put in this data items area. This will give us a count, so it's number of service. We're going to drag that above the others and drop it into the data items here. So I'll let it go there. Hopefully that worked, and it did. Okay, now we can see that it's going to have this number of service because of that operator there. Now we're ready to load the report, so we can close this and load the report. Now this may take some time, of course, if your center's got a great deal of data. Now we've just been working on improving the amount of resources that we're putting on this report making engine. So hopefully it won't take too long, but some of you, if you're very large centers, it is possible you will time out or you'll get an error message. And the workaround was probably to reduce maybe each year into 2 reports, maybe 6 months each. I know that's a little bit frustrating for all you larger centers, but we're working on getting that better. For the rest of you, it shouldn't be too hard to do the 3 reports per year as requested. So we've got this report. What have we got? We can see the service IDs, and that basically gives us an individual count. You scroll to the far right, you'll be able to see this number of service, and at the very bottom, it actually gives us the number 95, which is the total. The next step is that we do want to export this for the purpose of Attorney Generals to be able to send to NACLAC and Attorney General. So we click export, and we want to export to CSV. Now this might take a little while as well. You'll be able to notice it just in the corner there chugging away before this pop up. So don't panic if that takes a minute or two as well. You want to be quite careful naming these. I would do something like DIY, the AGD report, and maybe the date. So to the date range, etc. And then we can save it. And in my case, I can click on it and open and test that that data went through, and it did. So we're good. Now, the next stage, we've got 2 options here. We can save this report and then come back to it. Now, it is possible Attorney Generals might ask for this report again. So why don't we save it? We're going to save this, save as, and I'll just click there. And it'll give us the basic thing. So we're going to call it AGD services count. And we could put a date range, but we'll deliberately leave it generic so we can change it to whatever date range we want every time we reopen it. And I'll just tick that because it's easy, and save and close. Now, what we could do right now is simply go in here and change the dates to the other reports that we need to make and then load it again. But alternatively, we'll just close this report completely, and I'll show you what's happened now that we've actually saved the report. And we see now that we've got our DIY AGD services count saved. So we can click on that. This could be what you have to do next year. And we simply put in our date ranges again and reload it. Here we go. So let's put in the next one along, say the 1st of the 7th, but this time it's going to be 2015. And the next one is, again, we'll just move that to 2016. We'll load that report. That may take some time again, but essentially this is all you need to know. This is the end of the video, because hopefully that'll give you all the information to get the data out into a reportable format. So Christopher signing off.